Dear Heavenly God, we thank you so much for bringing us all together here for this midweek Bible study, to bring us together in union. Help us to study and understand the truths, the messages that you have taught us along the way. Help us to understand it so well that we can teach to others. I'd like to ask you, please, for forgive me for my limitations and for time wasting. That I could have had a better presentation, but I'm putting it all in your hands and asking you, Lord, to help me to remember everything that I've learned in the last few days, to help lead and ask the correct questions that I can help the group learn also. I ask you, Lord, please, to lead and guide and help us all in this endeavor of learning what we need to know to go forward to teach others. Thank you again for what you do for us, what you teach us, how you lead, and your patience. And I thank you also for the rain. I pray all. Thank you, and we pray this in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
So let me share screen. This one. Okay. Someone said you should be able to see review 2520. Let me open it. If you don't see that, let me know. And open up chat and stuff like that so I can hopefully see anything you guys might questions and stuff like that in that. Because like Elaine said, this is going to be interactive, so please jump in. Okay, so first off, so this is a review of 2520. And first off, just like Elaine said, remember the priest line, and remember how Elder Tess taught us this, that over the time in every dispensation, we have learned a certain message that built upon the other. During the plowing, we have the reform lines, which led into Daniel 11:40, and we've learned a lot about that. And in the latter rain, we've been since 2018 going over and over and over, King of the North, King of the South, and equality. But the 2520 in the early rain, a lot of us weren't here, and it's a really big, it's big, right? And like Elder Hermander taught it in 20 presentations in 2009, and Aaron has 3 really good presentations that he's done recently in March and April that are on the IPR website, and the really good review of the 2520 if you're interested. Really good review. And so you can see right here in the early rain that the 2520 is part of our story, and it's really important, and because it's built, everything's built upon it. So what I'm saying is that, we've learned a lot about the reform lines. We've learned about a lot about the King of the North, King of the South. But this in between, this important part, we're not all of us really familiar with, really good at. I am speaking for myself, and I'm sure there are others that just haven't completely grasped it. And so that's why I wanted to show you the priest line and where this falls in. It's part of our message. Okay. So I had a Bible study with Aaron yesterday, and he helped me to kind of organize a bit, though I have to apologize. I wasn't feeling that great today, and I didn't get as far along as I was hoping. That's why I'm asking for God's guidance and help. But this is what he taught me, the best way to present the 2520. In these five steps. First, going through Daniel 8:13, and then going through the original intent versus application. Then draw the two 2520 lines, show and explain the chiasm and Isaiah, and then explain the 126, 151 using Daniel 5, which is the many tech of Yapharsim. Okay. And so I'm going to start off this way. We're gonna walk through it. And so the Daniel 8:13 is this the question, right? So Daniel 8:13 shows the two questions that were being asked, but only one question regarding the sanctuary was answered. And that was the sanctuary question. So it's like, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And the answer was 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. But the other part, the how long shall the vision, the daily, and the transgression of desolation of the host be trodden underfoot? And so the host is God's people, and that the daily is paganism, and the transgression of desolation is papalism. And so the question is, how long is paganism and papalism going to trample down God's people? And that question wasn't answered, but in the 2520, that question gets answered. And that's why it's so important to us. So using the 2520, it can answer that question. And so the original intent, going back through his, so we just talked about Daniel 8:13, and then we're going to go through it, the original intent. So the original intent, and I'm just telling you hopefully things that you guys know already, and we're leading up to the lines that we'll all work on together. So the original intent of Leviticus 26 was not for the Millerites, of course. The original intent with Moses was for the people of Israel, the children of Israel. And if they were to keep the 10 commandments, they would get the blessings. And if they were to break the 10 commandments, the cursings. So you have the blessings and the cursings. And the curse is represented by the symbol of 7 times. And you can find that 7 times in Leviticus verses 18, 21, 24, and 28. And each of those, just a side note, each one of those verses basically represents a different king. And the reason why we know that is because there's that timeline. I mean, it's like after time, if you so that we all know that the children of Israel, they would have a good king and they'd be following all the rules, and then they'd go off and they weren't following the rules, and then they'd get cursed, right? And then they'd go into captivity, or and but they'd have a different king, and then after time they get a new king and they do okay, and then they get another king and they wouldn't do okay, and and so it progressed like that. So each one of those verses where there's and I don't think I'm expressing it quite right, but there would be 7 more times, right? And so they would get the more cursings. And so 7 times represents intensity, or like more, yet 7 times. So not 7 more years, but yet more punishment, yet more captivity. And the different punishments for that, those cursings would be famine and plagues, but also the scattering and captivity. And you can see that in verse 26, Leviticus 26, verse 33. And the symbol is 7 times. Okay, so that's just background. And he did a really good number. Shoot. But I forget how he did that one. Okay, so he starts off with William Miller knows 1844, right? So based on 1844, and if you, okay, going back to here, William Miller thought of the 7 times. Okay, and so if you take 7 times, I'll just add text right in, because this is where I started losing it. So 1 time is a year. And in prophecy, there are 360 days in a year, right? So you got 360 days times 7 equals what? Maybe I should do this with the calculator.
20 by 20.
Yeah. We got 360 days times, which is 1 year, times 7 years, right? And just like Elaine said, you got 2520. So 7 times. So he was thinking not just for him, for Moses and such, it was intensity. But William Miller made an application, his own application, and he turned that intensity into time. And so he made this as time, which would be 225:20, right? And so then he took this time and he said, okay, so if I take 1844, where did that calculator go? If I take 1844 and I subtract 252, what year would I get? Which is difficult with just a calculator.
2520, you mean? Is that what you meant?
Subtract, yeah, what did I say?
252, I think is what you said.
Yeah. So if you take time, if you take 1844 and you subtract and go backwards 2,520 years, because so he took so this ends up being 20 days, right? But he's using the whole 1 year equals a day, or one day equals a year. So then he turns this into 225:20 years. And that's his logic, right? So now he's going to take this calculation that he's figured out of Leviticus, and he's going to try to figure out if he goes backwards on this timeline, where would he be? So I'm not very good at calculating time. So now we can like start answering. Now you guys open up your mics and start answering. So if you subtract 2,520 years from 1844, what year would you get?
Are you able to go over, I think we all know this, but just in case, he knows 1844 and he knows it has to do with the sanctuary. How did he get to 1844 with the sanctuary?
Well, wasn't that that already figured out? You know, I mean, that's the whole reason why they had the whole
it's the main doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That one answer is the main doctrine. So how did they get to 1844 from Daniel 8:13 to 1844?
I don't know, you tell me. It's not part of my story.
Sorry, it's not part of your story.
I forget.
There will be people that'll probably be for our story. So anybody want to answer that? And if not, I will.
I know it had to do with. No, I forget.
I'm trying to think of the verses to take you back through, but it's just to brief, anyways, just to say it's back with the 457 BC, Artaxerxes, and the third decree being. Did I say that right? The third decree? Yeah. And then Daniel 9, I believe it is. I think that's where it's at. Daniel 9, 24 and 25. Let me look it up just in case. Give me just 1 second. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off, but I'm asking questions that people are going to probably, maybe some of us aren't going to ask, but we're going to be asked. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If we put that out there, there's going to be people that are going to ask us. So I think it's Daniel. Pretty sure it's Daniel 9. It's just and 24 and 25 and 26, I think. So 70 weeks are determined upon thy people, the holy city, to finish the transgression and to make end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and holy prophecy, to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, the wall. Maybe I got the wrong one. I think I got the wrong one. If I do, shall destroy the sanctuary and service. We probably need to, we'll focus on that another time. So make a note of that, because we need to be kind of versed in that one. But it's 457 BC with the third decree of Artaxerxes that took them, and it is from that Daniel. So just drawing a blank how to put it. So maybe if somebody wants to speak up on that has that clear in their head.
Elaine, can you repeat the question a bit?
Yeah, how do we get to 1844? Because she's putting on here that William Miller already knows 1844. And he gets there because it has to do with the sanctuary. The sanctuary is the answer in Daniel 8:13, which was 2,300 days.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we're going to be asked. I'm sorry, Christine. Because we're going to be, well, surely people are going to ask us if we did it this way. How did you get to 1844?
To my understanding, I think we got to 1844 after we, let me say, let me express it this way. So the way I understood that, if you minus 490 years for the Jewish nation, and then you will be left with 1,810 years for the Gentile. So that will take you to 1844 after adding the 34 of the close of probation for the Jews. So you add that 34 plus 1,810 years. So that will be the remaining for the Gentile. That's how William Miller got to 1844. So, but he made a mistake at first, which was 1843, because he did not begin with he didn't begin the year where the year began. So he has to begin where, so I don't know whether I'm explaining it right, but that's how I understood it from Aaron. So
yeah, you brought up the point as well to bring in, which connects to Daniel 9, where I was at. Because Daniel 9 takes you to the 490 years, and then 1810 years later.
Then you add the 34 to that, so that will be 1844.
Yeah, so we definitely need to work on that one another time. So sorry, Christine, we'll work on that another time to be able to go through that main doctrine in Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we're like all sitting here with our tongues tied.
Yeah.
To get to 20. But it is the decree, the third decree of Artaxerxes that begins it. It's 457 BC, and that comes from Daniel 9, where it breaks down to where you're going to come to Christ.
So the 2520 start in 677 BC, right?
Yeah, but she's not there yet. I interrupted her and cut her off.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It was me that did it. So the 490 you get from Daniel 9, 24 and 25, that 70 weeks is that 490 years. And then the 1810 getting to 1844. So it's 457 BC to 1844, which is 2,300 days. Okay, so William Miller knows 1844 has to do with the sanctuary, and that was the answer to one question. Okay, sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Sorry, Christine.
Oh no, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So when I subtract 2520 from 1844, it doesn't come out right. So I'm not sure. I thought he was using 1844, but He must have been using 1843, because when I subtract, if I go 1844 minus 2520, it comes out to 676, but it's supposed to be 677. So I don't know, I'm a little bit confused, because on his board he used 1844.
Well, originally it was the 1843 chart. That's the calculation, because he didn't take into effect the fullness of the year.
Yeah.
So remember, it was 1843 initially. That was his calculation until they figured out the fullness of the year, and then it got corrected to 1844.
You're right. I just thought that he must have done this after they had figured out the correction, but apparently not. So my bad. Okay, so if you subtract 1843 or subtract 2520 from 1843, you end up with 677. And you all remember what 677 is? What happened in 677?
No. I think at the beginning of 25, 29.
Mm-hmm. It was when Manasseh is taken captive.
I'm not sure about that.
What's that?
I don't know about this. Maybe you can ask somebody else.
And that is true. Ellen White says that he was an earnest, a down payment to what was coming.
And it wasn't just Manasseh, right? I mean, there were others that were taken at the same time.
I don't know if I can answer that for you. Manasseh was taken in captivity. Do you have the verse for it by chance? It's in second. It's been a while.
Yeah.
You hear a sweet baby back there?
Yeah.
I'll try to find it real quick. I don't remember where it's at. It's been so long since we've looked at any of this. And how do you spell Manasseh? Do you have it spelled right?
I thought I did.
That's okay, because I'm going to go off of what you have. To see. Numbers, Joshua, Isaiah. First Chronicles talks about Manasseh. Manasseh, Second Kings 2021 is when Manasseh, I want to say it's in Second Chronicles somewhere. Manasseh reigned in his stead. That Second Kings 2020. He was 12 years old when he began to reign. He did that which was evil, built up high places. Made his son pass through the fire. Set a graven image of the grove. And I don't remember if it's more to him. It's talked about Manasseh that was carried into captivity.
Okay.
And Ellen White writes about it too, and she says that he was an earnest like a down payment. So in 677, it's like a down payment. He was the earnest, the down payment that was showing, who was to come.
So I have the reference for the earnest.
Okay, that's Ellen White.
It's
Yeah.
Prophets and Kings. Yeah, Prophets and Kings 382.3. And I could read it if you want me to read it.
Yes, please.
My internet's bad. It keeps going in and out. So if I die, you'll know what happened.
Thank you. Are you there?
You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm only hearing part of you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, faithfully the prophets continue their warnings and their exhortations. Fearlessly they spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but the messages were scorned. Backsliding Judah would not heed. As an earnest of what would befall the people should they continue impenitent, the Lord permitted their king to be captured by a band of Assyrian soldiers who bound him with fetters and carried him to Babylon, their temporary capital. This affliction brought the king to his senses. He besought the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly before God, the God of his fathers, and prayed unto him. And he was entreated of him and heard his supplications and brought him again to Jerusalem into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord, he was God. And it gives a reference, 2 Chronicles 33, 11 through 13.
Yeah, I just found it before you spoke up, I found it. So it's 2 Chronicles 33, 10, and the Lord spake to Manasseh and to his people, but they would not hearken. Verse 11, wherefore the Lord brought upon them the captain of the host of the king of Assyria, which took Manasseh among the thorns and bound him with fetters and carried him to Babylon. And when he was in affliction, he besought the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly, as the quote said, before the God of his fathers, and prayed unto him. And he was entreated of him and heard his supplication and brought him again to Jerusalem and into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord, he was God. So that was 2 Chronicles 33.
But it doesn't say earnest, but in the writing the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it was just Manasseh then.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the earnest, as she uses that word, of what would be, I think what the quote said was what would befall the people if they didn't turn. So
When did the rest of them go in?
well, that's where you get to 70 years later. And I don't know if you have that mark on there, but you go into 70 years later with Zedekiah. And this period here, 677, begins actually the seven thunders. Is that correct, David? Begins the seven thunders, and Manasseh's the first one, right?
Yes. So, yeah. I was trying to find where Zedekiah is in. I know Daniel 1 goes into Jehoiakim, but I don't remember where Zedekiah does.
So poke out his eyes.
Yeah.
That's at the end of some chapter. I can't remember. Chronicles.
He goes just before it could be in the end of 2 Chronicles as well. But anyways, it began the seven thunders, and it's 538. Is that right? Somebody?
We're talking about the seven thunders.
Minus 677. 607. Sorry. Yeah, 607. I had it confused with one of the other dates. So 607 BC. Whoever said that first. Sorry. So so the seven thunders takes place in there, where you have the seven thunders representing those seven kings from Manasseh to, I think it's Ammon, Josiah, Jehoahaz, Jehoiachin, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah.
Okay. So
Permanent always said it right.
You can see them kind of listed there in 2 Chronicle. Oh, I don't have that. Yeah, 2 Chronicles 35 and 36. It makes a brief summary of those kings.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so what else do we know? So we figured by adding 2520 to this, we were able to come up with this, which was pertinent because if you go back to the times, the intensity, the punishments were famine, plagues, scattering into captivity. And so you can see when you subtract this and you get 677, you see the king going into captivity, right? And so it was a confirmation to them that they were on the right track, right? Because in Leviticus 26, the 7 times was intensity and going into captivity. And so when they did that and they came to that date, they could see when it started, right? It goes back to the decrees, right? When it starts. Okay, so what else can you figure out from here? I'm sorry, you guys, I didn't do a good job of preparing from here forward.
That's okay. We're all here to hold through it. So you've got you've got 12520, right?
Yes.
At this. Now you have 12520, and you get it starting from the sanctuary, Daniel 8:13. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So you have they've worked out the main doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventists is the cleansing of the sanctuary would be 1844. And so then what you're saying is William Miller found the 7 times. This is correct. The 7 times of Leviticus 26, and he took and made an application.
Right.
Okay. To come up with 2520. So where did he go over with you what brought William Miller to, I guess because he's understanding the 7 times we're making an application, then he goes to automatically to 1844 and then minuses 2520. Is that correct?
Right. According to Aaron, he said he knew 1844. And so he said, okay, so what happens if I subtract the date of the 2,520 years, so 20
Okay.
from the 1844, which ended up with 677. And then looking into the history of 677, he realized, okay, so there was captivity during that time.
Okay, so then you're seeing the Manasseh as the earnest, and then eventually the southern tribes go into captivity and scattered among the heathen.
Exactly.
As part of that. Okay, so that takes care of the first 2520 then, right?
Yeah. And then, so you see, like if you go to Isaiah, so if we were to go to Isaiah and look at Isaiah's prophecy, Isaiah prophesied, we actually was prophesying this part or this part? I don't know. But he was prophesying that the tribes would go into captivity, right?
Yes, and that, does anybody know the year? Does anybody remember the year? We went through that last week. What year? It's Isaiah 7. Anybody remember the year? Does anybody remember what did Isaiah prophesy? What was his prophecy?
That it would be, the captivity would be within 65 years. But was he prophesying the north or the south?
Both are actually there.
I know, but for Isaiah, because like, was he in the north or was he in the south?
Was in the north.
He was in the
North, I think. Yeah, he's in the north, I think. Or he's prophesying. I have to go back through some other studies myself to get that all straight. Some of those studies that I did the notes on from the Portugal classes. Okay, Isaiah 7, verse 8, for the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken. So within 65 years, Ephraim will be broken, which is the northern tribes. Ephraim is going to be broken. So somewhere in that period of time, Ephraim will be broken. So there's a civil war going on during this time. The earlier passages map out the civil war that's happening before he does this. And that civil war is, does anybody remember the date before I say it? Or did I already say it?
The date of the captivity to
You
the
have
north?
you have the, no, not the captivity. You have the date of the Isaiah prophecy there. I see it on the right, Christine.
I know. I was waiting for somebody to answer your question.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Elaine asked, when does anybody know the year when Isaiah prophesied his prediction of the tribes going into captivity within 65 years?
723?
That's when they go into captivity, but when did he actually give the prophecy?
We gave the prophecy before that.
And like,
And it was a time of a civil war. Civil war came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah.
742.
742. Does that somebody say that?
Yeah, 742.
Yeah.
Only because I saw it over there.
So did I.
So in 742, Isaiah prophesied that the tribes would go into captivity, and he's prophesying the northern, but it's also reflects on the southern also. But at the same time he prophesied in 742, his prophecy was rejected. Remember that, because remember, God shows us the end from the beginning, right? So remember that Isaiah's prophecy got rejected here. Okay, and then so between and then do we know what year the northern tribe went into captivity? Phil? Yeah. So that was in 723. Is when the some of the northern tribes, not all of them, but some of the northern tribes started going into captivity to the Assyrians in 723. And then if you subtract this time from this is where you will get 19 years. And then in this time, although it was Manasseh in the southern tribes, this is also when the rest of the northern tribes went into captivity. So if you if you add these two together, 19 and 46, you come up with 65 years. So Isaiah prophesied here in 742, and at 65 years, all of the northern tribes were in captivity. And that's when the Manasseh had gone into captivity.
Is that something that Aaron said? I don't remember that.
What did I say?
I just don't remember saying that the northern tribes all go in, the rest of them all go into captivity in 677. I remember that being 723. So I'm not sure, is that something that Aaron shared?
Yes, Aaron shared that. He said not all of the northern tribes went into captivity
Okay.
in 723. He said that's when they started going into captivity. But because we always, the thought was, okay, Isaiah said that they would go into captivity within 65 years. Well, that 19 years is within 65 years. And I had said that. He goes, well, yeah, but the rest of the northern tribes went into captivity in 767 or 770.
677.
677. So it was 65 years when all of the northern tribes were in captivity. And I think he said it on one of the videos too.
Okay, I have to check that out because that part I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I had said that to him, well, it was within 65 years. And he goes, well, actually it was 65 years. Because I questioned him on that.
Okay,
Hopefully I understood it correctly. That's the question, right?
no, that's okay. I just didn't know that. I just know the marking of the captivity for the northern tribes was 723, and then Manasseh is marking the southern tribes.
Yeah.
Well, the beginning of the southern tribes and that progressive fall.
Mhm.
Okay,
So now when it comes to the chiasm, so we all know that a chiasm, it's a mirror on both sides, right? And so because we have this part extra over here, we have this part extra over here, where we're going to have this is a 19 and a 46, so we're going to have a 46 and then a 19. And we know that because it's a chiasm. Now I can't remember exactly the way Aaron taught the logic in the order of which William Miller came up with it. I can't remember if he came up with this part first or this part first. But whichever one he came up with first, he knew once he had it on one side that he would have that chiasm on the other side. So because there's a 19 plus a 46 over here, then you know that there's a 46 and a 19 over here. And I think this one is William Miller's line, right? And then this one up here was
Hiram Edson.
Hiram Edson had this line, right? And so this is where the second 2520 is. And you can take, since we this 2520 was based on the 1798, right? The time of the end, right here. And if you were to do the same thing over here and subtract 2520 from 1798, you would get, so it'd be, well, actually 722. That part I don't get.
No, that's okay. There's a lot of complications in there, and I know that Elder Parmenter went through those dates and marking, like, I want to say 722 to 721, somewhere in there for something, but
Okay.
so I can't explain the differences. I don't remember the details of it, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. And because the same thing happened here. So
I don't remember where he does it, but he breaks it down really thoroughly to show how it's, I think he said 721. But
it's probably in that 2520. What did he call it?
yeah, so okay, so you have 1798, and then we marked the beginning of that captivity, 723. You have a 19 and a 46 down below.
Mm-hmm. So you,
19 years to 723 and 46 years to 677 BC.
mm-hmm. So this is going to line up with the 1844. So if you add 65 years, because this is 65 years to 1798, get 1863. And the 1863 was when Christ was supposed to come back. So that's your second 2520. And on this 2520, you have half of that would be 1260. And this is the pagan rule.
Which takes you back to Daniel 8:13,
Exactly.
right?
Right. And this one is the papal. All right. Okay. And so this answers that second question here. How long shall the vision of the pagan, how long shall paganism and papalism trample down God's people? And it shows you, so the paganism would stop, after, so minus 1260 from 723 would be here, and then minus another 1260, and you would end up with, is it 17? Is that correct? 7 minus 25 equals 1797 or 1798. I don't know. Okay, so 1798 is when God's people would be not being trampled underfoot anymore by either paganism or the desolation. The transgression of desolation.
So the two 1260s of that 2520. So higher medicine in 1856 understands the two 1260s in that 2520 and the carrying away of the northern tribes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's all I got on that. Right.
Okay, comments, anybody? Questions? So are you prepared to take this to time setting then?
If you guys could help me.
Yeah, well, because we can see here that when you put this all together like she just did, that we can see when Christ was supposed to come back. So what did Ellen White say in 1868?
That he was supposed to come back already.
They would have, yeah, so what did that mean for the Millerites? If she's saying he could have come back already, then that means they could have known the time, right?
Right, exactly. So if William Miller and Hiram Epson hadn't said, no, mine is right, no, mine is right, if they had put the two together and figured out this whole chiasm thing, they could have figured it out in 1856. So Hiram Edson could have figured out in 1856. And I only know that because that's what Aaron said. when he could have figured out the time setting in 1856, which is 7 years before 1863. He could have known, he could have figured out the date, but because they were too proud, I think and they just, the people weren't ready.
So what happened in 1863?
They went into Laodicea.
Well, they did that in 1850.
Oh.
They were already there, right? So had they done this, they're going to be presenting a message on time. What does everybody say about a message on time?
Right. That there's no more messages on time.
There's no more time setting, right? There's no time. Time shall be no more. There's not going to be another time prophecy. So, but James White does something in 1863. Does anybody remember what he does?
He rejects, oh, right. He rejects the 2520. And that's what I was saying earlier. Remember that Isaiah rejected the prophecy in the beginning, or not Isaiah, but the people rejected Isaiah's prophecy in 742 in the very beginning. And in 1863 is when the 2520 was rejected.
James White rejects it.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, there's at the beginning of the chiasm, there's a rejection of the prophecy. And then at the end of the chiasm, there's a rejection of prophecy. So then they go on to organize the church.
Exactly. Okay.
So that's time setting that would have told them when Christ would return, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we get to time setting in our day?
By the 126 and the 151. So how do we get to that? That was a message that Elder Parmenter came up with. If we go back to this line, in 2012, Elder Parmenter, he came up with the 126 and 151 time setting of prophet presentations. And so if you were to take (1863) and add 126, you're going to get 1989. And so how did he come up with that? Did he go through the logic on that? Like what brought that to his mind? Because it was a tenth, right? Based on a verse, a tenth. No, I don't know. It's a question.
I think it's Isaiah 6 or 10 where it talks about the 10%.
Thank you. Well, let's look that up. You're thinking Isaiah 6 or 10?
612, I think,
6:12?
or 13, 613.
Mhm.
Yeah, 613.
So okay. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return and shall be eaten as a teal tree and as a oak whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. So right there, the holy seeds shall be the substance thereof, right? Of that tent. Right?
Also is it Daniel 5, the Belshazzar? Many tekel ufarsin.
Yes. Right. So also if we go to Daniel 5. So I can't remember. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So Daniel 5:25 and 26, and this is the writing that was written, many tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. Paris, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. So got this. I should ask you guys some stuff. So do you guys remember how that goes with the many tekel upharsin? So what is a many?
Is that 50?
Yes. And then the tekel
Is 25?
a tekel is equal to a shekel. Right? So that a shekel is one because there's 50 shekels and there's 50 mennies in a shekel.
50
Yeah.
shekels and a mini, I think it is, but yeah.
So your person is what you said is half. I don't think I spelled it right. It's like you said, half of a many, which is 25. And we have too many's, just too many. And then if you add all that up, yes. Does that add up right?
126, yeah. 126.
I'm trying to make it add up to 125. What? That's not working at all. Okay. Okay. So that from Daniel and from Isaiah. Gets us to the 126. And that 126 we subtract or we add to 1863 to give us 1889, which is our time of the end, right?
Correct. 1989, you mean? Yeah.
What did I say?
Is that what you meant?
It's what I meant.
Our
Yeah.
time at the end? Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, our time at the end. When you said that, you meant 1989? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1863, 126 years later is 1989.
Yeah.
Using Isaiah 6:13, which is the 10th or the remnant. It's a remnant that will come out. And that remnant represents the 10th. The 10th is a 10th of the 1260. Everybody follow that?
Yes.
Yes.
So in 1989, the movement didn't know that, is the best that I understand, because that was understood in the, they didn't understand that because that was understood in the early rain dispensation. But Daniel 11:40-45 was opening up with the King of the North and the King of the South and the issues that were taking place in 1989 and the fall of the Berlin Wall. We're understanding some of those prophecies in Daniel 11:40-45. So this provides another witness to 1989. That 126.
Exactly. Okay, so what else can that give us? If we take and subtract or add that to 1844, I mean, like once you start adding these numbers and figuring things out that makes sense, you know, what's mattering, you know, right? So then if we take and we go 1844 plus 126, what do we get?
Not that one.
That one.
1863 plus 151.
18, right, wait, so 1863 plus 151.
But you need to map out the 151 as well.
Right.
So
So, and then, so remembering that, how, does anybody remember the verse where we figure out that a many not only equals 50, but it also can equal 60 in another place? Do you remember where that is? Okay. It's in
Ezekiel 46, I think. I don't remember if did we look it up last week or did we just I think it's 46. And I must not be spelling many right because I'm not pulling it up in my.
it's spelled M-A-N-E-H.
M-A-N.
But I'm getting maybe Ezekiel 45.
Yeah, 45. Yeah, 45. I said 46. Yeah, 45. And the shekel shall be 20 gerahs, 20 shekels, 5 and 20 shekels, 15 shekels shall be your manna. So when you add them up, the 20 plus the 5 and plus the, I'm sorry, the 20 plus the 25 plus the 15. So you have 20 plus 25, which is 45, plus 15 is 60. So 60 shekels shall be your manna.
Plus
Many, manna, many.
5 plus 15 equals 60. And I just want to point this out. You know, like with Elder Tess, and she noticed that, you know, God put in there that was, you know, 276 people, right, on the boat in Acts 27. And she questioned, well, why did he use that number? I just find it curious. There's got to be a reason why he split this out the way he did. You know, okay, so like he didn't just say 20 gerahs is equal to 60 shekels, which
Yeah.
he said 20 shekels plus 5 and 20 shekels plus 15. Like there's got to be a reason. We just
Well,
don't know.
I think he's, because it says, and the shekel shall be 20 gerahs. So a gerah is 20 shekels.
Yes.
He's singling out that a gerah is 20 shekels.
Mhm.
And then saying that 20 shekels, I don't know why then it says 5 and 20, and then 15 shall be your manna. So when you add them all up, then you get the many manna, many. if that made sense.
That's what I'm pointing out, that, you know, God doesn't waste words.
Right,
So there's a reason.
right.
We just haven't figured it out. There's a treasure there.
Well, one part of it, at least that I can see anyways, is he's singling out that 20 shekels is a gira, or is that right? A shekel shall be 20 giras. So, so you've got, let's see, a shekel shall be 20 giras. I might have said that backwards. So 20 shekels would be, whatever, he's trying to break it down to giras as well, as what it looks like. 20 shekels would be 20 giras, is that right? A shekel is 20 giras. So if you have 20 shekels, it's times.
I saw Aaron add all these up.
Times 20?
I saw Aaron take this information and add it up, and it adds up to 2520. You want to see me do it? So if, I'll show you the math.
Is it looking at the gira as well?
Yeah, no, it's based on the Gera. So, okay.
Yeah,
Shekel shall be 20 giras. So if you have, actually, I don't know exactly how I did it. No, yeah, okay, so if shekel shall be 20 giras. So if you got shekel, but I watched him do it. And then I forgot to write it down where he found it.
so you're breaking down the giras is what he's doing.
Yeah, so a shekel equals 20 giras. And then, so here you have 20 shekels. So 20 shekels
Times 20,
times 20. Oops.
400,
So 20 times 20 is what?
400.
And then you've got 25 shekels. $20 shekels, 25 shekels, yeah. So wait, 20 shekels. Right. So you've got 25 shekels times 20 gira, right? And that equals what?
500.
I'm gonna totally be wrong, but I saw him do it. And it was like, whoa. And then he says 15 shekels times 20 equals what?
That's 300.
That's not gonna equal 2520, is it? So add them up.
It's 12. Was it supposed to meet the 1260?
Somehow it adds up to 2520. He did it, I don't know, he did it right. I don't know. Like I said, I watched him do it and then I got sidetracked. So sorry. So it's not coming out right. Sorry. All right, so we figured out that in the other verse,
Ezekiel 45.
what's that?
Yeah, Ezekiel 45.
Ezekiel 45, that like a shekel equals 20 carats. What is that? I don't know how that works. My mind isn't wrapping around this.
No, it's telling you that the 20 plus the 25 plus the 15 is
16.
a many. So in Numbers, if anybody remembers the reference. In Numbers, it gives you that the many equals 50 shekels. And in Ezekiel, it tells you that a many equals 60. So two different measurements, two different nations measuring the shekel different. So you have two different measurements of a many, depending on the nation and the period of time or whatever it was that you lived in. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what do I subtract do I subtract the 151 from the 1863?
You take the 1863 and add 151, which you started to do.
Was 2014. And the 2014 is what? How is that significant for us?
Sunday law.
Yeah. Then is that all we do with it?
No, because you go ahead, whoever was going to say something. Was somebody else going to say something?
I said, I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, there's another witness for that. Where do you go to for the other witness for 2014? Because you used the 151
Yeah.
to get from 1863 to 2014. So if you do 2014 minus the 126, where do you go? Where do you get to?
Right. The 2014 minus 126 equals the 1888, and that was the second coming. Or where he could have came back a second at another time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's how we can time set it using those numbers. What else? What else am I missing on here?
What'd you say?
What else am I missing? Because this was a Sunday law too, right? Because this is where they were, is this where they were talking about the Sunday law?
Closing the fair and trying to amend the Constitution. Call the United States a Protestant Christian nation and close the World's Fair on Sunday. Yeah, the Blair bill with A.T. Jones arguing in court over the Blair bill, defending the right for all people to worship according to their own conscience.
What else? also, you take 2001 and subtract 151 from that, you'll get 1850. And was 1850 a 9/11 for the Millerites?
No,
But he does show it. He does show subtracting 151 from 2001.
it is a waymark on the Millerite line.
Right.
It is a waymark, but it's not the same, but it does take you back to 1850.
When did we go into Laodicea? Wasn't 9/11 when spiritualism came into the SDA church?
I'm not gonna comment on that one right now because there's things that I know I've heard Elder Perminder said that on that I don't remember specifically.
But that's all I've got.
Maybe somebody can walk us through what she just did, do a summary. Because remember, the purpose of this exercise is so that we can be able to teach it. So if somebody wants to volunteer to walk us through a summary.
Well, I could give it a go. This is to summarize this. It's no easy chore here. So we got, so according to the Isaiah's prophecy, we got two lines. Well, for one for the northern tribe and one for the southern tribe. And in 742, Isaiah prophesied, and that was rejected. Of both tribes, the northern tribe and the southern tribe, going into captivity. So the northern tribe goes into. So I always thought it was 723 BC, but I guess that's when they start to go. And then the rest of the northern tribe goes in, 70 years later. So, and then the southern tribe starts with Manasseh at 677 BC, and then the rest of the southern tribes go in 7 years later into captivity. So come to the Millerite history. William Miller, I think it's based on Daniel 8:13, and he figures out the 2300 day prophecy, which ends in 1843. Yeah, 1843. And he knows at that time the sanctuary will be cleansed, but he figured the sanctuary was the earth, and not heaven. So he knew about the 2520, and the 2520 was in Leviticus. It was the intensity that if God's people did this, went against God's commands, and they would be cursed 7 times. And in the original intent was intensity. William Miller took the liberty to use it as time, and subtracted 2520 from 1843 and went and got to 677. So that was William Miller. So his 2520 started from 677 to 1843. That's not counting the fullness of the year. That's just what he came up with. And after the fullness of the year, it was recalculated to 1844. And then Hiram Edson came along and also worked on the 2520. And he figured out the northern tribe went into captivity, started going to captivity at 723. And the 2520 from there is 1863. So, and we know now, I think it was 1868, I think, that Ellen White says that Christ should have returned by now. And so we know that it was through the 2520 that it's 1863, and it's at that time that James White rejected the 2520, and time was no more. So that was the Millerite history. Now come to our history. Not the line upon line. I mean, I know it's not here, but the line upon line was the first angel. That was presented in 1989 with Elder Pippinger. Right, started from 1989, and then the study of Daniel 11:40 to 45. And then the second angel was raised up and was able to figure out through Daniel 5 and Ezekiel that we were supposed to. Time has now given back to us. Right, so we're supposed to set time again. So through Daniel 5 and Ezekiel, I don't remember which chapter was in Ezekiel. You have the many tekel upharsin, right? So according to Daniel 5, you got the 126 of the many tekel upharsin. So you add that to the end of the 1863, and we get 1989. So without knowing that in 1989, Elder Pippinger was raised up exactly at that time, and it was not until Elder Parminder came along that confirmed it using Daniel 5. So we manufactured through time, through 2520, we manufactured our time of the end, which is 1989. And then in Ezekiel, another set of numbers were given, many tekel upharsin in 45:12, Ezekiel 45:12. Which set up a slightly different calculation system, which was which came out to 151. So you add from 1863, 151, you get to 2014, which is the Sunday law of the priest line. And so all that was calculated through 2520, which is the key that unlocks the 126 and the 151. So so let's see, 1888 and 2014. See, that's 150. Okay, so 1888. How does 1888 connect with 2014?
So the wrong number,
18
the wrong one then. Somehow,
so,
didn't we get to, oh, maybe it's 126.
Yeah, 126.
Thank you. Sorry. My bad. The 2014 minus 126. Sorry.
1888. So we have two witnesses of the 126 and 151. So that's all I have.
That was a good job. Thank you.
Anybody else want to try it?
I was just going to ask if anybody knows why did we use Daniel 5? What was the reason?
Why what? Why we use Daniel 5?
Yeah.
Because that's where the many tickle you parson is.
I know, but there is a connection. So somewhere in Prophets and Kings, I believe, Ellen White makes the connection between the 70 years of Babylonian slavery to the 1260. So in the beginning, you have Nebuchadnezzar, and in the end, you have Belshazzar. So that's why we use Daniel 5.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that, please? And could you, are you able to raise your volume a little bit?
I don't know. I can't. That's my voice. I'm on my phone. In Prophets and Kings, I believe, Ellen White compares the scattering in Babylonian slavery, the 70 years, with the 1260. So in the beginning, you have the image in the plain of Dura, you have Nebuchadnezzar. And in the end of the Babylonian slavery, you have Belshazzar. So if you apply that to the 1260, the end of the 1260, you have Belshazzar, which is mene tekel upharsin. And that's why we used it.
Do you remember where in
I don't know if it's 711, something like that. I have to have it somewhere, but I don't have it right here right now.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, she connects the 70 years in the wilderness to the 1260 in the wilderness, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
captivity. Anybody else want to try it?
Sorry.
Jackie, are you up to trying it?
Not really, because I'd rather have the notes and go through this to really get it in my mind. I missed the last week's study on this too, so I have the notes from that. You, in fact, sent those notes out for the class last Wednesday, I think,
We didn't do any notes last week.
or not last. It was the Wednesday before then.
Okay.
Yeah. It was on the first portion of the 2520. I don't think there was the comparison, the 2 lines. This is new. I mean, it's new to me.
Oh, it's new. To you. This is just breaking down the full chiastic structure of the 2 2520s, beginning at 742 and ending in 1863. 742 marks Isaiah prophesying that within 65 years that Ephraim, the northern tribes, would go into captivity. They begin going into captivity in 723 BC. 46 years later, you have Manasseh carried off. And yeah, I just never heard that other part about the rest of the northern tribes going into captivity. But you have a 65 year that you have that 65 years there, leading up then to Manasseh, who is a down payment or an earnest of what's going to come. Miller has the 7 times of Leviticus 26, understanding that there's a that it's intensity, but he makes an application based on a day equals a year in Bible prophecy. So the day equals a year, and there's 360 days in a year. And this is 7 times he's taking that time and making it a year. And so saying that it's 7 years and there's 360 days in a year times 7 is 2,520. He gets the answer to the question in Daniel. They get the answer to the question, one of the questions in Daniel 8:13. The 2,300 days is the answer to the sanctuary, but they don't get the answer to the host. And William Miller takes that 1844 date and minuses, if I'm correct, if that's what you said, that Aaron went over with you, that he subtracts 2520, which takes him back to 677 BC. So he sees there that that's the earnest that Manasseh is, and then in 607 BC, Babylon comes in and completely destroys. So it's a progressive destruction in that period from 677 to 607. There's a period of 7 different kings there, and in there is marks the 7 thunders, which marks that progressive destruction. And so that 677 to 1844 takes care of covers the 2520 for the southern tribes. 1856, Hiram Edson discovers the northern tribes going into captivity, because if you remember right, Daniel 8:13, it deals with the host, but it also deals with the daily, which is paganism, and the transgression of desolation. Is that how I said it? Which is papalism. So you've got paganism and papalism in that verse as well in Daniel 8:13. And so Hiram Edson understands that to be the northern tribes going into captivity beginning in 723, and then 2,520 years later, you get to 1798. That's divided into 2 between pagan and papalism. We know the 1260 of papalism. So the other 1260 is paganism. And so you have Daniel 8:13, you have the host being trodden down by the daily or paganism and by papal persecution. And that comes to an end. We know that's marked by Ellen White in 1798. So backing that up takes you to 723. So Ellen White marks that at 1798. So, so the top line is the northern tribes. The bottom line is the beginning of the chiastic structure. 742, the top line has the end of the chiastic structure at 1863, because they understood the Isaiah prophecy at 742 would be within 65 years, and it was broken down between 19 years to 723, and then 46 years later to 677 BC. So to complete the chiasm, or balance, as we understand in parable methodology, that you want to balance the story here, you would then see a 46 and a 19 at the end. And that's where you get to, so you have the 2520 from 723 to 1798. You have the 2520 from 677 to 1844. You have the beginning where Isaiah prophesies about the 65, which gives you then the 19 and the 46, which we just covered, to the captivity of the northern tribes, and then Manasseh being taken into captivity, which begins the second 2520. So then, therefore, after 1798, you would then have, at the end of that 2520, because at the beginning of the 677, prior to, you have 65 years. And so after 1798, you're going to have 65 years. There's 46 years from 1798 to 1844, bringing that to the sanctuary, and to the sanctuary being, drawing a blank on the words, so you know what I'm saying. Under 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And then, so then you would add the 19 years, and that's what gave them 1863. So 1863 for Hiram Edson in 1856 to make this discovery of the other 2520 would have brought them to understanding, when they put it all together, would have brought them to understand that in 1863 Christ could have come. So, but we know in 1863, James White then rejects the 2520, and the church goes into, they go into the wilderness.
Scattering, right?
Huh?
That would be a scattering.
Yeah, they go into, thank you, scattering. So, and yes, that's where Leviticus 26 is necessary for that as well, to understand the scattering, because throughout the Bible you have the theme of scattering and gathering. And what does Ellen White say about time setting? She talks about how I'm trying to remember the verse, or the passage. It's in Early Writings, I believe, where you I'm poorly paraphrasing, that the rules are different. Maybe somebody remembers the quote to say it. Doing things in the scattering versus the gathering. So during the gathering, there is time setting, is what this proved. While they're in a gathering, there's time setting, and they were in a gathering. When you look at the Millerite history as well, they were in a period of gathering. So there was time setting in the period of gathering, but not in the period of scattering, which is 1863 to 1989. So they go into that scattering, and then in 1888, Ellen White also says, after that, I'm trying to remember the date. I want to say it's 1893, and then I think again in 19 something, she says that Christ could have come back. So they would have been time setting, right? And time setting is done in the gathering and not in the scattering. So then going back to what we just went through with Daniel 5, with the many tekel upharsin, your kingdom is numbered. We took two different measures of what the many is. We took two different measures that the Bible gives us. One, I don't know if we found it. I think we might have found it, but I'm sure it's in Numbers. And then also in Ezekiel 45 is where we just got it. So Numbers is where you get 50 shekels for a many. And then in Ezekiel 45, you get 60 shekels for a many. And this gave us the many, 50 shekels, 50 shekels. Tekel is 1 shekel. and Upharsin is divided of a shekel, so it's half, and so it's going to be 25, giving you the 126. And then the other one is the many 60 plus 60, and a tekel is 1 shekel, and Upharsin is, or just 1, and then a Upharsin is half of that, half of the many, which is 30, which gives you 151. So we're in a gathering, and in the gathering there's time setting. So from 9/11, after 9/11, you get the opening up into the opening up of the 2520 2009. Elder Parmenter does the 20 presentations on time on the 2520, and that culminates in 2012, making a prediction of time using the 126 and the 151. The 126 from 1888 to 2014, and then 1863 to 2014 was the 151. So there is time setting. And does anybody have any questions on that?
Very good.
That's good.
The more we do it, the more we'll be well versed in it to be able to, because I know I tripped up a couple of times too, well versed in being able to explain to those that will hear time setting.
So Christina put in the reference. The Prophets and Kings 7:14.1. Today, the Church of God is free to carry forward to completion the divine plan for the salvation of a lost race. For many centuries, God's people suffered a restriction of their liberties. The preaching of the gospel in its purity was prohibited, and the severest of penalties was visited upon those who dared disobey the mandates of men. As a consequence, the Lord's great moral vineyard was almost wholly unoccupied. The people were deprived of the light of God's word. The darkness of error and superstition threatened to blot out a knowledge of the true religion. God's church on earth was as barely in captivity during this long period of relentless persecution as were the children of Israel held captive in Babylon during the period of exile. I can see how, I hope I'm not mistaken, but I can see if you were to read this, how we as SDA come out conservative.
Come out conservative, is that what you said?
Yeah, because they're talking about, all our restrictions, our liberties were restricted. We weren't allowed to preach the gospel. And so those who are coming out as evangelists, right, are taking those liberties and pushing that gospel on people that don't want it, because they're fighting for their freedoms, their liberties, and believing that God wants them to do that. And I can see how we came out, how we were in SDA as very conservative, because reading this, it seems to me very conservative. That's my opinion, and I apologize if I'm misspeaking. If you misread it,
She's talking about today as in her day, right?
As in her day. But if we were to apply it to ours and try to force to take our liberties and say, we have the right to teach you exactly what God says, no matter what you want to believe. What is that, Christina?
Yeah, she's talking about the 1260, when the church was restricted to preach the gospel and to read the Bible and stuff like that. So we have to, I think, read a little bit before.
Agreed.
I think she's talking about the 1260.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But if you were to take it out of context, which we did a lot, somebody could take this paragraph and say, see, this is what we're supposed to be doing. I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying that if you take this out of context, as people do, I could see how we can have been conservative.
Where you would go back, I'm not sure that I understand what you're saying, but if you went back to after the cross and then the message went to the Gentiles, you go through the period of the Laodicean church where they were preaching the gospel. It eventually culminates in them going into the 1260, the Dark Ages, where they don't have the liberty to teach the gospel. And then that opened up when the Pope was taken captive.
Right. And if it's taken during that time, it makes sense because it was during that time of scattering. It was during that Dark Ages and stuff like that. It doesn't matter.
That's okay. I didn't quite understand what you meant, but that's okay. My eyes are burning.
Some see.
They struggle sometimes.
Well, thank you for your participation.
Thank you for doing this. And it seems like a good exercise that, again, anybody else wants to take on this exercise, because the doctrines that are taught from 1989 to current that lead us to the midnight cry, we need to be able to defend the waymarks. Because I think that's what Phil was referring to. He said, Tamina says we need to be able to defend the waymarks, right? So maybe another exercise that we could think about, this again as well, but because this basically shows us 1989 as I think it was Phil that mentioned it's a manufactured date, 1989. But maybe another focus would be how we manufactured 9/11. So that we can get good on that as well. Those of you that are in classes ought to be really good at that.
I think I would have been really good at this one, and I wasn't. So.
Well, you weren't feeling good today, so when that happens. I think you did just fine. You're gonna have to teach me some of the stuff you did in there in the PowerPoint. But so anybody else? Thank you, Christine.
Yes, Christine, thank you very much.
Thanks for your participation. Appreciate it. For the input you guys have. It's important.
Together, what do they say? Iron sharpens iron, right? So together we help sharpen one another.
Exactly.
So keep it in mind. Somebody else wants to try to walk through this again in their way, their own way. It's a good exercise to do. And then, like I said, another good exercise, which I'm not prepared for myself, is mapping out 9/11, how we manufacture 9/11. Does somebody want to close in prayer? Jackie, would you like to?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Christine, for this time to study this. Yes, I need to really get up on it with dates and yeah, the understanding is there. It's just, I have to look at the line for sure. I'm not going to remember this just by mind. So, all right, let's pray. Let's close. Dear loving God, we thank you for our time together, that you brought us together under your guiding hand, giving us wisdom and understanding of this truth. It is important to understand for sure the two 25-20 lines plus the chiasm as we explain to others, as you bring it about. We must understand it ourselves before we can give it to other people. So we thank you for all of the light that you're shedding upon us at this time, the reviews that we need to have, as well as the waymarks and understanding what leads up to the Sunday laws in these periods of time. And understanding time. Yes, this is another important thing. And we see in the past how your people miss the mark, and even for the reasons why. And we are so grateful that you're giving us, with your patience, you're giving us this time to really understand what we need to know in these last moments before the Sunday law, where the work will increase very rapidly. So we thank you that we can be together. We thank you for all the talents that you have given to us, because everything that we have is from you. And we thank you that you have a movement of people. You have elders, you have your leaders and teachers around the world, preparing each one of us to be able to really go forward in power and strength as you lead and guide through your wisdom. So again, we praise you. We thank you for every blessing we have. Be with us through the night and bring us together on Friday evening, the Sabbath hours. And again, we thank you and we love you so very much. We thank you for your great love for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.